Is my house haunted? Or is it my crazy ex messing with me? This goes back to 2016, but since I'm new to Reddit, I thought I'd post here to see what y'all think cause I still don't know what to think. I 31F bought my first home back in 2016 on my own as a single young woman. I was so proud and excited, especially after finally leaving the toxic guy I was with the previous 5 years on and off. It was the fresh start I needed. Anyways, I moved in just me, no roommate, and my ex had never been there. The house was a small two-bedroom rancher built in the 50s but updated a bit. It had a dirt crawl space for storage and a huge fenced yard with three gates. A metal gate, a small gate to get to the front door, and an old wooden gate to pull into the covered garage type area. I'm a nursing assistant, so I do a lot of night shifts. So after living in the house for a few weeks, I get home from a night shift. It's 6 a.m., starting to get light outside, and I notice there is apples all over my front yard. Not apples off a tree though, store-bought apples with the stickers thrown all over my front yard. I was tired, kinda just brushed it off as kids messing around and went to sleep. A few weeks later, I get off another night shift and everything seemed normal as most mornings, so I went to bed. I had a house sitter the weekend prior as I went on a girls' trip with some friends, so the house sitter had some people over to have drinks, which was totally fine, but they had left cans in my fire pit. When I woke up after sleeping that day, I went to let my dog outside to pee in the backyard, and all the cans as well as burnt chunks of wood were laid in a perfect circle around the outside of my fire pit. This seemed odd, but I just kind of thought it was some neighborhood kids messing around.
Another few weeks goes by and I again get off a night shift. I pull in NY driveway and my heart sinks to see all my gates wide open. They were all closed and latched when I left. Something just felt off this time, but I was tired after a long shift and told myself not to get freaked out over stupid kids being annoying and went to sleep.
That following weekend I had off, and my cousin wanted to go to the movies, so I agreed, and she picked me up. When I left, I put my dog in the house, locked the door, and left the porch light on since it would be dark when I got back home. When I got back, I came home to find my dog outside, the door left unlocked, and the porch light turned off. The watch for the light is inside. This time I was freaked out. I called NY Dad to come check the house for me. I was convinced someone had done this from the inside, and that someone lives in my crawl space. But he came and checked, and nothing to be found. I ended up getting a roommate to ease my mind a little and feel a little safer, so a guy from work was looking for a place, so I offered him a room, and he accepted. He was a big dude, so I felt if it was someone messing with me, they would think twice with him living there. I was wrong. One night I was home alone as my roommate was working night shift. I fell asleep on the couch watching a movie and I woke up to a missed call from a random number. I googled the number since I had never seen it before, and it was a number from one of those apps you could download to call or text anonymously from. So I tried calling it back, no answer, then seconds later I get a text saying, "How's the movie?" I ask who this is, and they say, "Who do you think this is?" I ask my roommate if he's messing with me, and he replies from his normal number, "No, why?" So I tell the random number to cut it out, it isn't funny, but they continue to say things to me as if they can see me. I'm super creeped out and run to my window and close the blinds. They then begin to ask me to come outside to see who it is, and I run to my door and lock it. Then they say, "It's Corey." I didn't know a Corey. I ignored the text, they eventually stopped, and I waited till my roommate got home so I could sleep. Nothing ever happened again after that, and I still live in this house with my now husband. No explanation for any of it has ever come up. Spooky stuff in the forest. My friend's house is next to this forest. There is a long path to get there and an electric fence is next to it. I went there with 4 of my friends. We had been there before during the daytime and nothing really happened until today. Around 6 p.m. we walked in through the path until we reached the forest entrance. There was an electrical fence put up which wasn't there the last time. However, it wasn't turned on, so we just went through it. Once we got in, we split up. Two of them went ahead, while me and my two friends went a different way. Once we went in, nothing really happened, except we heard a few weird noises and saw a cow in there, until I saw two of my other friends running ahead out of the forest. I told the two guys I was with, and we decided to find out why they were running. As soon as we got out, they had already went ahead. We kept walking until we noticed one of the guys who ran ahead of us was behind us. They said that they hadn't left the forest until they saw us leaving. We kept going ahead anyway, and it was getting really dark at this point. We were at this path next to the forest trying to find another way in. Eventually, we found an entrance and went in. We didn't go very far until I heard rustling noises deep into the forest. One of the guys walked in further and found a white blood bag and needles on the floor. As soon as we saw that, we decided that it was time to leave. The house on Elgin. Continuing on, when my nana rented the home, she was living with her then boyfriend, her youngest daughter, my aunt, and several pets. The only two of which I can recall being a pug named Pugsley, a grey cat called Chinley, and a Siamese cat named Tatterbug. Tatterbug was a jerk, but I adored him nonetheless. There, of course, were several other pets, but my memory is hazy. Tatterbug is the only one that I know of who was a big part in the happenings of the Elgin house. I don't remember the layout of the inside of the house much, but I remember we entered through the back door usually, and there was a staircase between the kitchen and dining area that lead upstairs. Past the dining room was a large living room with a bay window and a front door. The room was divided in half with an old double door in the center that lead to the other side of the living room and a hallway leading to my aunt's room and a bathroom, I believe. I have no memory of what was upstairs save for the master bedroom closet that spanned the length of the entire upstairs area. I think there may have been a small office upstairs because I feel as though my nana's boyfriend at the time kept war memorabilia from his father in a room upstairs. That is the best I can describe the interior. First, I would like to say that an experience widely felt by many of my family members was if you went up the stair, you would feel hands pushing you up. The staircase was an L shape, so us kids would normally grab something to sit on and slide down the two sections, but anytime we walked up, it was like two hands were pressing on our shoulder blades, ushering us. When asking my older brother what he recalled from the home, he said, "Elgin never did anything to me. It seemed to like me, you, and our cousin for some reason." Shifting focus to my aunt who lived there at the time, she said that her cat, Chinley, seemed possessed while they lived there, and that she perched on the ledge till she was so exhausted she'd fall asleep and fall off. She lost so much weight. Though I believe Chinley made it to the next house just fine and lived a happy rest of her life. Tatterbug was also subjected to whatever was in the home tormenting him. As a kid, I hated Tatterbug because he was a mean little guy, but later in life, I realized he was a sweet cat, and that house may have provoked him more than I thought. Before I get to Tatterbug's tale, I feel that it's worth mentioning a few more stories, like the time that my aunt one day called her mom, my nana, hysterical, and said that someone was bouncing a bowling ball upstairs. Of course, when my nana got him, that was exactly what it sounded like. A boiling ball being dropped from the top floor, though they never knew what caused it. At some point, my nana and her boyfriend stopped sleeping upstairs. I don't know how soon that happened, but I know that all of my memories have them downstairs, in the second half of the living room. Either their bed or a couch was against the double doors, so they kept them shut and locked and slept there. I remember watching Jeepers Creepers in that house and feeling dread in my stomach, like something was watching with me. My cousins would also watch movies with me there, and more often than not, you could find us playing around outside in the dirt. However, one day, my twin cousins were being babysat by my nana's boyfriend when they wanted to play hide and seek. It would take a while to find them though. My nana's boyfriend was freaking out, and when Nana got home, the girls had been hiding for a while, and the one place they hadn't thought the twins would be is where they found them. The twins were sitting in the very back of that long, dark closet for God knows how long. There was also an instance where the twins managed to climb on the roof from the window at the top of the stairs when no one was looking, but we are unsure whether or not that has anything to do with the Elgin house or childish curiosity. To finish this story, I'll finally tell you about Taterbug and his experience. Like I mentioned before, Taterbug was a Siamese cat with the most beautiful blue eyes and one hell of a temper. He was fiercely loyal to my Nana and was often present in their downstairs sleeping area. One day, my Nana and her boyfriend are watching TV and hanging out when Taterbug starts to puff up and starts freaking out. Suddenly, he bolts from the room, and they hear a thump in the other part of the living room. When they go to check on what happened, my Nana told me that there had been a framed picture of her boyfriend's dad on the fireplace mantel that now sat face down in the middle of the floor with Taterbug on top, holding it down. He had been losing it over this picture, but when my Nana managed to get him off, they turned the frame over to reveal no damage, not a single crack on the glass of the frame. Despite it practically flying across half the room and hitting the floor, it had zero damage. I wonder if they put the photo back or if they left it off of the mantel. I'm not sure. What I do know is that there is undoubtedly more that happened in the Elgin house. I just haven't had the chance to get more information. The house is boarded up now, and I think my Nana was the last person to live in it. Despite being declared a historical home, the last I saw it, there have seemingly been no efforts in reconstruction. So what do you think? Perhaps a poltergeist? Or maybe the spirit of the man who fought in a war, whose memorabilia resided in the home? I'm not sure, but what I do know is that whatever it was, I hope it isn't there still. As the title says, here's my account of a weird experience me and three friends had while visiting this abandoned hospital that was sort of well known in my hometown when I was in high school. To give a clearer context, the abandoned hospital was in the middle of an even bigger abandoned site, which was the old military neighborhood. The whole place sector was abandoned for a while, but basically all the location buildings, which were all identical, were all really well boarded up. However, the hospital itself was accessible through a few broken windows and such. We went there in the middle of the day in summer, broad daylight. It wasn't my first time there, and quite honestly, it was not scary at all, more like adventurous and really interesting to explore, take pictures, etc. I emphasize this aspect because after a few times there, I could tell you there was absolutely no sense of dread creepiness at all. It was really a nice place to chill, which might have made us a little too comfortable, I guess. Anyways, we toured the hospital together, would split from time to time to explore some of the operation rooms and such, and we all regrouped in the central reception area at one point to hang out. The closer I was getting to the main central area, which was located near the biggest open broken window bay, I noticed that I could hear a repetitive knocking sound that echoed outside. The closer I got to the windows, the clearer the sound got. When we were all together and pretty much ready to leave, my friend also pointed out that he could hear what sounded to him like hammer strikes on a really constant beat. When he said that, I instantly recognized what I was hearing for the last 10 minutes or so. We got outside through the window bay, and the noise was even clearer and louder at this point. We were quite puzzled, as I said earlier, the whole neighborhood was abandoned, only our car to be seen all around. We got a little skittish at this point and mainly didn't want it to get caught there since it was a restricted area after all. So we headed for the car, and when we turned the corner to the locative building in which we parked in front of, we all froze. There was a guy hunched over or bent down at the very bottom of an exterior staircase leading to what I assumed was the basement of the building. We could only see his back. The guy was wearing a clean-cut handyman overall with a leather tool belt, and he was hammering the bottom of the boarded-up door. When I saw him and locked eyes on his back, I felt an immense feeling of dread and general terror I rarely felt before, in broad daylight mind you. We were all creeped out and looking at each other. Didn't say a word, just raced to the car and left. I know it might not sound like much, and nothing that happened couldn't be explained, but being there and seeing the weird scene was really something else.
It's a feeling that's hard to explain to someone who wasn't there, but I still remember this vividly, more than I'd like to.
How had is this thing? This is not my personal story, but my dad's. I want to see what people think the thing in this story could be. So this happened a long time ago before him and my mom had gotten married. When they were dating, my dad and my mom lived in different states for a short period of time because of work. I don't remember where my mom was, but my dad was in Arizona. So when my mom visited my dad, he would have to drive a relatively far distance to get to the airport to pick her up or drop her off. Not only was it far, but the only road there was in the middle of desert, so basically in the middle of nowhere. So one time my dad had dropped off my mom at the airport so she could go home. It was pretty late at night when he had dropped her off, so now outside was pitch black except for light from the car's headlights. There were also like no cars at this time, so the road was completely empty. Well, my dad was just driving back home after dropping my mom off, not really worrying about anything, when he noticed something in the middle on his side of the road. He slowed down to see what it was and saw what looked like a fairly big animal laying down and appearing to be dead. My dad told me he was fairly certain it was a deer, but he was looking at the animal from inside his car. All of a sudden, the animal's head sat up straight and looked at him and just stared. He said he saw the skin of the animal move and that he saw a figure of what looked like a person inside of it. But he didn't get a super good look cause without a second thought he said in his own words fuck this and immediately drove around it and sped away. He told me as he was driving he could feel and hear something running alongside of the car and he started to panic. Right as my dad was saying a prayer in his mind and continuing to speed down the empty road for a few minutes, he finally felt like he had lost whoever or whatever had been chasing him. My dad said he doesn't believe it was something supernatural, but that he just felt an immense amount of fear in that moment, and that he was in some sort of danger. He also refused to drive on that road if it was dark ever again because of that instance. Help me, what are the sounds in the woods by my house? Hello, this is my first time posting, so I apologize if I format a little strange. I am not sure what the conventions are here in any case I have a problem, and I do not know where else to find advice for it, so I am posting it here, and maybe someone can give me some advice on what to do. I am a bit frightened by the situation, but I cannot keep doing nothing about it. Throughout the last week, I have been able to hear a strange noise coming from the woods that are next to my house. For context, I live in a house that is on the side of a small cliff or ledge, and down the ledge, a ways down a bit of a steep hill, the woods begin. I first heard the noise on Saturday. It was of a medium pitch and sounded like an animal yell, so I assumed it to be a deer. There are deer that walk across the street and into those woods late at night sometimes, and I have seen videos of deer screaming before. It did not sound quite the same as the videos I have seen, but it seemed to make sense as an explanation. What began to frighten me though is that the sound is regular. I heard it again the next night around the same time, and at the same pitch. I looked at the clock when it happened and saw that it was around 1 am. It was also the same length as the last night, two brief screams, and then silence during that second time on Sunday night. I thought that the screams had a bit more tone to them, like they sounded a bit more like vocal human screams, not animal screams. I say this because the screams sound like they had the tone of fear. You know how you can tell if a scream that a person makes is one where they are afraid or one where they are trying to frighten something else or be intimidating. These screams sounded like someone that was afraid, like someone who had been quickly scared by something. I started coming up with a new theory, because thinking it was a deer was causing me to be frightened. It felt uncomfortable to think that an animal could sound that way. I started to think that maybe there were kids in the woods playing some kind of game. There are a couple of kids who live in the house next door to mine. They are not adjacent to the woods like my house is, but they have gone in there to play before, so I am happy with this theory for a while. On Monday, I went to my neighbor's house. I asked the mom if she had been letting her kids play in the woods late at night over the weekend. I said that if she was, she might not want to let them play out so late at night, as the hill that the woods are on is steep, and they could easily get injured if they are trying to navigate it in the dark. She told me that she would never let them out so late, that I must be hearing some kind of animal, or maybe some teens who are sneaking off into the woods. Our area is very remote. I do not know of any teens who live around here, so I do not think what she said is correct. I thought that maybe her kids are sneaking out late without telling her. But her kids are around ages 8 to 10, I think, so that also seems unlikely that they would be sneaking out so late. I also started to think that the tone of the screams does not sound like a kid's tone, like a kid's tone is like a squeal, and normally very high pitched. However, these screams are more throaty, which is a sound I do not think kids can make. I stayed up late on Monday and Tuesday night, but I did not hear anything. I thought maybe then it was the kids and the mom had scolded them or warned them after I talked to her, but did not want to admit to me that she was letting her kids outside so late. But then last night I heard it again. Again, it was like a brief throaty scream, but this time it was more than two, which was unlike the first two times. This time there was a long one, and then two more that sounded as if they were fading. But the first one was so close to my house that I jumped when it happened. It did not sound distant at all, like it must have been at the edge of the woods. I do not know what to do because now I have heard these screams for 3 nights. I am afraid that something in the woods is being hurt. But then I am also afraid that there is something in the woods that is trying to lure people in, like it is something pretending to be hurt. It could just be a prank that is being done. But again, I live in a remote area. There is nobody that I know of around here who would be the type to do a prank like this. Everyone in my small neighborhood is an adult, except for the couple of kids next door. What should I do? Should I set up something to capture the sound? Should I go out to the woods to investigate after a night where I hear it? I think I will start to keep note of exactly when I hear it to see if it really is around the same time each night.